my primary goal is if there are questions, if there are things you heard but you want to dive a little deeper into, please bring them up there. That's you paid the big money to be here tonight. So what questions you have, let's make sure that you get answered. If you don't have questions or if you're too shy to raise your hand, one or the other, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put myself in the role of the CEO or SVP of marketing of a B2B organization, and I'm going to ask questions of these folks, that I feel like I still need to have answered. Now, what we need to, good, you have another microphone. So one of the other things that's great about this panel and what you need to really appreciate about them is they could all get up here and give, 45, 50-minute presentations if they were at the GeekWire event or whatever, and they try to distill everything they had down to 15 minutes. So you know that they've got more to say. So I'm going to start this off by just from the audience, are there any questions that you want to go into yourself? Is there something that you need, from any of the individuals that you want to hear more about? This is a good opportunity. I will walk the microphone to you. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
To Rand. So you were talking about how the click rates on ads were plummeting, right? But then also talking about how the ability to get through with content was also plummeting too. So what are you actually seeing working most effectively today?
Right. So I think it's not necessarily we are clicking on less content. I think we're actually all clicking on more. And it's not necessarily also the case that, ad click-through rates have gone down on a per-person basis. Like we actually do click on fewer ads per person per session than we did in the early days of the internet. We make up for that by having way more sessions and way more people. But when it comes to content, I don't think we're clicking on less of it. I'm only saying that the aggregate percentage is going down because there is so much to offer. It's sort of like how when you first opened Twitter, you were only following 2 people, so you read everything that they tweeted. And then you followed 500 more, and now you see like 1 tweet from them every month. Right?
So what's the solution for a B2B out there what's the solution out there for a B2B who is looking to, they don't care how they do it, but they just want to get to their audience more, they want to draw in more people and turn them into, or build relationships and close deals? That's a big question.
No, it's just it's a totally fair question. I think the challenge, I would extend the question to the rest of the panel, but if anyone else wants to jump in. But the way that I think about that is it's always based on who you are. So I like to draw a Venn diagram, right? Circle 1 is basically things that we are good at, like things where we have unique strength, where we think we can do better than anyone else. And then circle 2 is things that actually will resonate with our audience. And you might need to do some experimentation to get at both of those things, but the intersect is what you want to do. So I don't think it's like, we should all definitely be on Instagram. But maybe for some of you, Instagram makes sense because that's the intersect of the Venn.
Got it.
All right. So the first question I had on here was, we had 6 people talk about strategies, really, but you're also running, in some ways, you're running B2B organizations yourselves. So what I'd like to hear are your most successful tactics that you individually run or you have run for your own organizations.
For clients or for ourselves?
For yourselves.
Well, from the Clarisonic era, which is about 3 years old for me now, the most successful tactics tended to be ones that had some kind of personal engagement that was invited and some kind of payoff for the participation. And it could be something very simple, but sweepstakes, naming contests, opportunities to comment in a way that gets publicized, tended to stimulate the kind of audience we wanted, because these were the people who really had a passion for the brand and they really stepped into it.
One model that I've done quite a number of times One in particular, when I was launching a startup and we were only like 9 months in and had no funding, and we need to impress potential investors to get them to want to fund us. So what we did is we created this event. It was centered on small business on Capitol Hill and their customers, right? It was like essentially a gigantic customer appreciation holiday party. And we were able to build up enough partnerships within about 1 month to actually create an event that got 700 attendees. I mean, it was 1 month from idea to event. But what I've seen out there is that the more compelling and exciting you can make an idea, the more people want to get behind it. And if people don't want to get behind it, then you need to work on your idea. And essentially, the one principle that has always, when I deviate from it, things don't work. But when I do this type of approach, they work out beautifully. And the simple framework there is that anything you do to connect with people should feel like a gift, whether they're receiving or giving the gift. And that's what sharing amounts to. They feel that it benefits them so much that they want to give it to other people. And that's why it gets around. And I think one of the most important and most powerful elements of a marketing strategy is creating a feeling of gratitude. Like if you create your marketing with the intent and the hope and the sincere drive of creating a feeling of gratitude, that will work and it will engage people and will make them want to share and get involved with your company.
Sure. So let's see. I'm trying to think of ones that, even if you're familiar with Moz, you probably don't know about. And there was one that came to mind. So does anyone here subscribe to the Moz Top 10? It's like a email list. Okay, so a few folks. Moz Top 10 basically is 10 pieces of content from around the web. I think we limit it to a max. Is it 3, I think, that Moz can have itself? Right, so out of the 10, we can have 3 pieces of content that we share every 2 weeks that come from our own website and 7 from other people's website. And so this is good from a diversity perspective, but the awesome thing about it, the biggest, I think, most powerful thing about it is we send tens of thousands of visits every 2 weeks to a bunch of our competitors' websites. And not just competitors directly, but indirect competitors and SEO consultants who are sort of sometimes partners, sometimes pseudo-competitive, not really. But it's incredible, like the goodwill that created in our industry, and then to your point, right, the gratitude and the recidivism that came as a result is insane. I think it was one of the most quietly powerful things we did many years ago, and that trend has continued.
Cool. So I don't work on our marketing team at Simply Measured, but actually the reason why I joined Simply Measured is because I got sick and tired of people telling me to go read their blog because it was so good. I was working in London at a.
Try to make it bad.
No, yeah, I was like, I'm going to go inside. Take it down. No, but and so for me, it's really doubling down on the content on our blog. It's one of the main drivers of all of our referrals, all of our signups, and has been now for a really long time. But probably over the past 6 months, since we've kind of doubled down our efforts there, it's just skyrocketed. And I think if you go there and read the content, it's really interesting. But then actually look at the post and try to understand maybe why did they post it. You'll kind of see why that happens. And I think that goes back to creating a strategy behind the content that you're creating, not necessarily just being that engine of creating tons of content. Yeah.
So I'm in sales, so I talk to people all day. I don't do the type of stuff that these guys do, but data, as well as the data these guys have been talking, drives everything in sales nowadays. Any modern leader has to use the data to understand what's going on. So 2 things I do. First of all, I make sure I connect with the marketing people to make sure that we're on the same page. If you don't do that, then as a sales leader, you end up fighting with marketing all the time. So that's first principle for me in any new business is make sure that we're working on the same thing. That talks to your comments back there about closing the loop, understanding source to customer. And then the second thing, using data to understand where my sales team needs coaching, which is the thing I do all day long, which is understanding those that are weak in any segment of the sales process, the customer journey, and helping them with individual coaching plans. So in the case of my 6 or 7 months at Pipeline Deals, we've improved our conversion from our website traffic that our fabulous marketing people get us from about low 20% to now it's approaching 45% conversion to sales. So that's all done from individual coaching and helping people do better.
45%
from leads that come in from the website.
Wow. Really?
Really?
Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy.
It'll be over 50 before too long.
We should do an event just on that topic to dissect that.
Yeah, I want to see the presentation where you're like, see, the funnel was like this, and then we went. The
funny thing is, he's going to be like, "No, I'm not going to tell you how I did that. Why would I tell you how I did that?" So, a little bit of a philosophical question, and we'll start with Mike over here, because we were you specifically brought up the connection between all the Marketo and Google and all these different things, which kind of then triggers the opportunity for the salesperson to make the right call within 16 seconds of seeing the site, right? So at what point does that become too creepy, right? At what point does that scare people, right? At what point is it that Google, the Gmail is hooked up to Marketo in some way, so you know that I was talking to a friend of mine about wanting to buy something, and all of a sudden your salesperson gives me a call?
So hopefully it's after we've finished taking Pipeline Deals all the way. I think that's about your attitude and how you are on the phone with people. So, for me, I'm very open, and I try to get my team to be open and personable with people, honest. It's like I use tools to track your email, so I'm happy telling them what I'm doing, and that tends to break the ice. A lot of people will tell stories. I'd rather tell them the truth, and by telling the truth, it connects you with that person. I will tell you that there's been a lot of stories around the growth of techniques on predictable revenue, that everybody in the world of SDR is adopting those techniques, very simple emails asking for referrals, and whether that's impacted the response rates. And I don't think it has, but people are looking to get through things quickly. But I think open and honesty is the best way to go.
Anybody else? Oh.
I think there was a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I actually have a question for Ram. You were talking about
I'll give you this.
on the 5 trends for 2015 on SEO. You were talking about the visuals, and you did give 3 examples of the boring and not maybe engaging visuals. I wanted to ask what
The corporate,
the board picture and the stock photo, and then the infographic that is hard to read. So I was wondering if you could give us a couple of examples of what would be engaging content for a B2B company, or what would be a good example of something that might be, I don't know, good.
So it's hard to give you examples because I can't pull them up. So if I'm like, and then there was a stick figure on the left, and the stick figure was pointing to a pie chart. So that might be tough, but I can give you some like maybe broader theme. One thing that I have noticed is authenticity in visual content seems to work better than and just kind of be better than professional and polished. Not that professional and polished is bad. Not that, like, if you have a wonderful designer who also totally gets your customer and totally gets the message you're trying to send and that kind of stuff, but I've done a bunch of these, right, where, like, I go home and I use, super embarrassed to say this, like, Flash, old Flash, like, Adobe Flash, before they shut it down. I still have an old copy that sits on my hard drive, and I, like, make my little circle with my little square and my little arrow pointing to it, and those things sail around the internet so much better than like the polished, beautiful stuff that designers in our field come up with, even than some of the Moz designers. I feel embarrassed sometimes. Those guys are professionals. Their work is clearly beautiful. It's clearly better. But something about like the little crappy graphics I create seem to resonate. I think that's like the authenticity thing. So that might be my one piece of advice. Yeah, in the glasses. Sorry, I meant to point to you, but then, sorry. Anyway, yes. Those glasses are super cool, FYI. Really? Okay.
I'm having deja vu by being asked a question right now. Do you mind if I tell everyone that Kelly was my teacher in high school? So this is and one of my favorite teachers, and who led me to journalism, which led me to marketing, which led me to where I am today. So many thanks to her for me being up on the stage right now. But yay, teachers. So doubling down on the blog for us was a couple different things, actually. The first thing was better understanding of our audience. So we do eat our dog food at Simply Measured. We did a ton of research into what are all of our prospects talking about, what's important to them, where are they, what kind of jobs do they have, and then we started actually segmenting them into different personas. And so, like I said, when you read something on our blog, it's very easy to figure out who it's aimed at. It's aimed at the community manager, it's aimed at the CMO, it's aimed at the salesperson inside a company, or it's aimed at an analyst. And so we started then going back and saying, all right, let's find out which one of these are converting better. It's all looking at data from the past, looking at stuff that we're doing in real time, not real time, but close to real time, figuring out what types of content we should be producing. And those are all, again, based on, like I said before, our business goals. So we're looking at site traffic, we're looking at signups, trials is huge for us, so we have a free trial of our product, and if we can get someone on a free trial, we have a very good chance of actually getting them into our platform as a paying customer. And so for us, it was all about that segmentation and then creating content for those segments, not trying to just go out there and write as much as we could.
So developers are slow and expensive. Hopefully nobody wrote that down. No, I guess I should clarify that having developers make content changes on your website is extremely inefficient, and thus it's slow and expensive to make those changes. But I think the broader question about companies like Wix and Squarespace and those kind of companies is a really interesting one, because it is something that I think about. I see the ads on the Super Bowl, and you see more and more people. But I think that there's a space in the market where custom development for just a brochure type website doesn't really make sense. And these companies are fulfilling that at a price point that is perfect for these customers. So I'm all for it, because it's nothing worse than turning somebody away from building a site for them because it's too expensive or whatnot. But and so what I think it's really going to allow is for developers and companies like mine is to focus on what's really important to the consumer of our client, and to help develop functionality on their website that's going to make them more efficient beyond just displaying static web pages. And like I said, that might be integrating the APIs for their CRM. It may be integrating into their billing system, or maybe some internal database that allows customers to look up records, or carry out different business activities. Serving different markets. I would say that the Wix and the Squarespace are just serving different markets. And if it's like, we have a lot of clients who will come to us and they want a WordPress site, and I think they're always like, oh, it's just easy, just install a theme. And it's like, all right, well, go install a theme. It's there's a lot more that goes into it than just installing a theme. You have to create the graphics, you have to create the branding, the messaging, and all those things. So custom development really should be saved for custom functionality. Creating something that isn't already existing on the web. That's the other thing. A lot of clients will come to us and they'll want something that, like, I could grab off the shelf and plug in, and so we do. I mean, if somebody else has already put all the efficiencies and everything into it, just do that. So developers will focus, I think, more on custom development, custom functionality. Hope that answers that.
Okay, so we're gearing to be done with this part at 8 o'clock, and it is 8 o'clock. I have two brief questions, if you guys will indulge me. Just like, we'll get through this and we'll have individual questions, but I think these are questions I'd like to get a group response on. One of them has nothing to do with B2B marketing, okay? But what I'd like to ask is, if you look at the 7 of us up here, right, none of us work in organizations that are 100% white male, right? And yet, here we are, and we're in this kind of this panel situation, and I bring a lot of speakers to class at University of Washington, so I understand the problem of like finding subject matter experts that have schedule availability. What can we do as 7 white males to increase the number of folks that don't look like us to either want to get on stage or have the opportunity to be invited on stage?
Wow.
Sorry.
Was it? Yeah, great question.
But,
Yeah, first of all, I think it's we're dealing with equal wages. We're dealing with a lot of these things as a society, and I think the first thing is to ask questions like that to begin the conversation. And I think the second space is to create the outlets. And I think at any time in the history of mankind, there's never been more opportunities to voice your opinion. And so I think it's really going to come down to those things, and then recognizing those talents, and hopefully people who put on these types of events, and we can all invite more of those people out there, and didn't mean singly out there, but make that an emphasis. So
because I know Moz has done a great job of making sure the whole organization is represented on the blog.
Yeah, thank you. No, this is something. It's making me viscerally uncomfortable, and I feel a lot of regret. We actually, and I failed on this one. We have a policy that we don't host events that are all white dudes, and I didn't look, I didn't check, and so when we sent around an all staff yesterday night, saying like, oh, we're having this event at Moz tomorrow, and someone from our team was like, what the fuck? Like, we said we're not going to do this. Rand, you're speaking on this panel. You specifically said you wouldn't do this. So I think holding each other to those standards is something we can do, and we will. I promise that at least like we're going to get better at it, and being aware of it, bringing it up is huge.
And by the way, I'm not blaming anybody.
No,
here,
I
right?
know.
The point is,
just,
like, but it is hard sometimes.
Yeah, like my soul is consumed by guilt all the time, and so I'm even feeling guiltier by this.
My job is done. I made Randy Twiskin feel guilty. So.
And part of it's the panel, but that's just an aberration. The reality is there's a wide diversity of talent in our industry, and it's rich, it's growing, it's fabulous. And I think instead of just kind of looking at us saying maybe we're just a statistical anomaly here, let's appreciate the integrity of the entire system, and I do appreciate your comments.
So, okay, one more.
I'd say one thing. There are a lot of great things about Seattle as a city and a community that are helping us get better at this. And I'd really encourage everyone here to check out some of those different groups. Check out a lot of the different events that are going on. SICK, I think, was very diverse this year in terms of panel members and speakers, and I think that's one of the great things that Seattle is bringing to the overall. I use tech culture or tech community as a bad way to say it, but I think that's something that Seattle, because of the way that we are up here in this little corner by ourselves, I think we're bringing a lot of that even down into the valley and into New York City, in these places where they're not really looking at things like that as much as we are, or as much as they probably should be.
All right, so my last question, bringing it up a little bit lighter. The last question, because if I'm the CEO of a company, I'm basically looking at 6 different people who are selling me on why I need to dedicate a lot of budget to whatever you guys are working on, right? So can you talk about what are you seeing from a budget perspective? I'm the VP of marketing or the CEO, to SEO, to sales, to marketing automation, to analytics tools, to agency support. Where should I be dedicating budget? We can just start down the line if you.
Well, it's really a matter of demonstrating value and being a service to the goals of the organization, and marketing one's value and uniqueness with relationships that are perseverant. And those are the fundamentals that have been in existence way before the web. I don't think they've changed.
Awesome. Yeah, I think there's some equation that exists where it's a percentage of your sales is dedicated to your sales and marketing programs, and then once you figure that piece out, and some people say 3%, some people say 12%. It's kind of up to your threshold there, but again, like in my talk, having the system in place to know what is and isn't working is, to me, like that's the key, is to get to what's working and do more of that.
I think it's possible to do very effective marketing on a very limited budget, but I think that, and I think to Rand's points and a lot of what else has come up here, is that a lot of it's just about taking what you already know, that authenticity, right? Not getting too artificial and hiring all these elaborate creatives who may or may not be deeply familiar or at least or even part of your audience, and just having them create this high concept stuff. But taking what you already have in your own company and turning that into stuff you can put out there to use to connect and give something meaningful that your target audience will appreciate. That can be done on the cheap because most companies they should already have that wisdom in the company, in their own people. I mean, they are professionals, and they're hired for their expertise. It gets a little tricky about turning it into content that works within these contexts, and that's where you need to start adding on these tools. And you really should pay for the tools cost once you get kind of comfortable with the content creation and have that system down. Then it gives you something to test, but it's very important to get that data and to be able to track what's actually happening, like have the functionality built into your website to know the impact it's having, because really all of your marketing should be measurable, and marketing for too long has gotten away with being unmeasurable just because it's brand building or whatever. Can't measure it, sure. Well, most of the time that's just wasted money. That's kind of half of the marketing money that's wasted. But when your marketing is working, you know it's working, and with the tools available right now, like some of these people around here have created those tools that make it possible to have these deep insights about what's really connecting with your audience. So they're definitely worth paying for, but you could actually just start on the cheap and just start getting it out there and connecting with people and delivering meaningful content, or however you need to connect with you, or however your audience wants to be connected with on their own terms.
We're going to end with some controversy. I'm going to disagree with Dominic on something. So
that's why we're doing this.
Yeah. So I agree that in an idealized world, I think marketing should be measurable. I think it is wonderful when it is measurable. However, I would say that weirdly, the highest ROI marketing activities that we've ever invested in have been the hardest, most completely impossible to track ones, wholly serendipitous. All of my fundraising activities have come from wholly serendipitous, unmeasurable channels when I track them back to hey, we closed this deal with Brad. Well, why did we close that? Well, because I went to this event, which led to this person meeting, which led to this. I can't track it. There's no way. And I would say that's true for a ton of our traffic. That's true for a ton of our conversions, our longest CLTV customers, all that kind of stuff. Just it's weird. So we actually have a rule at Moz. 20% of our marketing efforts should go into serendipitous, unmeasurable channels. And that's like a rule. So there you go. Two different viewpoints.
It works for you.
Yeah. It might not work for everybody.
Wow. Okay, so I agree with that as well. Again, I'm not part of our marketing team, but something that we really do invest heavily in events. We invest heavily in partnerships that may not actually come to fruition for us for a really long time, but 3 months down the road, we actually get another partnership that ends up being a giant deal for us, and that is a lot of that serendipitous sort of activity there. Yeah.
Would be measurable if you can kind of track it back. So what I'm talking about is a lot of times in marketing, there's these efforts that are basically like putting it out, like a lot of the Super Bowl ads, for example. They're just creative put out there, and you have no idea. And there are many, many millions of dollars spent on the ad, and comparable amounts spent on creating the ad and all the other connected activities around the ad. That's what I'm talking about. But if you can tie it back to it eventually, it doesn't have to be like I pay $5, I get this client, right? But making connections is tremendously important. And definitely one of the most important things, especially for B2Bs, is to build relationships. I mean, that is fundamental with B2B. And I think this is one of the great strengths about B2B, why there is, they kind of think they have a natural edge in marketing today. They've always known how to build relationships. That's what it's been about from, like, you know, when it's basically sales focused, but taking that relationship building practice and expanding that into the internet. And yeah, lots of serendipity there, but it's all designed to actually build relationships that turn into something eventually.
So other than the 20% swap, fund that we have in the bucket over there, I mean, for us, it's all about understanding the elements that drive into your data, and then having the data connect from your very first source through to the sale and the lifetime you have with your clients, and being able to prove that is how we go about our business. And it starts with a test typically, but understanding the elements of data that drive your proof points that then can relate to higher funding for any specific initiative. And any CEO worth his salt is going to say, okay, so I spend 10 over there, what am I getting here? And if you can't prove that to me, come back when you can.
Our CEO.
There you go. Yeah. Works here too.
Okay, so we had budgeted to try to get through the event by 8 p.m. It's the first time that we've ever run this event, and it's 8:12. We only ran 12 minutes over, and I think that's a pretty good job for the first time event, right? So we're going to close off the formal part of the presentation here, but looks like we got plenty of wine, we got plenty of beer, we got plenty of snacks over in the Moz fridge over there. So we're going to release everybody over. Yes, and if you come up and talk to Dominic or one of the other 5 panelists, they will share with you where the drinks at the bar are. So that this is incentive to come talk to the drink. So anyway, so let's thank our six folks here tonight. Thank you. One last time, thank you for Moz. Thank you to Moz for everything they're doing tonight, and then go talk to these guys and enjoy some more drinks. Have a great night.